like conservatives were like, oh, get politics, it'll change, or get culture, you'll change politics. That's 1980, right?
Right.
2020, it's like you get politics, you'll change culture. And, I just think the truth has to be kind of nuanced and careful and contextual. I mean, think about it. Like,
Well, it's certainly cyclical. So I guess the next question for the sake of my viewers is, well, I think we agree that fundamentally there's a lot that's great about liberal tradition
yeah,
and that saved the
yep,
world in many ways, many times over. But that, at least in modern America, it's been, let's say, misinterpreted or abused in certain ways. So I
yep,
guess the next question is that there's been a rising tide of post-liberalism. The first contact I've ever had with it was Patrick Deneen, who I thought wrote a pretty good book.
yep.
And then I read some Adrian Vermeule, and then the cracks started to show a little bit, and then I read you, and I'm like, okay, maybe not the integralism part, but maybe the post-liberalism part I'm still playing with. So I'm curious, what is post-liberalism? What does it get right, and what do you think it gets wrong about liberalism?
So I mean, before folks like Vermeule kind of gobbled up the term, maybe about 3 years ago,
Yeah,
you would see people like John Milbank or Adrian Pabst or whatever, and a lot of their views had to do with like liberalism being too atomistic and too individualistic and being a kind of social acid that destroys family structure,
yeah,
that makes like false claims about how egalitarian we could be, and when it doesn't see
yep,
that equality in action, it tries to enforce it. That there's not liberal value neutrality, that that's a smokescreen for liberal domination. All this stuff is basically true. The problem is that when I was in graduate school, my teacher Jerry Gauss made sure that we studied a lot of the late 19th century, early 20th century liberals that said exactly the same thing. So you start off particularly with Thomas Hill Green, who's importing a lot of Hegel's insights into British liberalism starting in the late 19th century. And then you go all the way down to John Dewey into the 30s and so on, 40s. And they're all saying, oh, look, classical liberalism, it's like a social acid, like it isolates people, like, or whatever. But their solution was progressive economics in many cases. And
How
so I
so?
think, so you need a welfare state. You
Oh,
need, for instance, like the FDR
okay,
kind of liberties, like freedom from fear and want, and like all of this kind of stuff, unions and things like this. Many of the economic policies that people like Deneen support, the difference
I don't know if that
in
works
the
at scale, to be honest with you.
well, I'm just saying that's I'm not
Sure,
saying that's
sure,
the way to go. I'm just
yeah,
saying that the criticisms that like Milbank or Papster said, this is what British liberals or so on, or Dewey or whatever, were saying like 100 years before, but it just got forgotten because post liberals get stuck in what I call the three Johns: Locke, Mill, and Rawls. And so like you just miss. I mean, they don't even really talk about Adam Smith, who's just like tremendously rich, what he wants to say. Um, I think a lot of the post-liberal complaints about liberal order are things that liberals have been really worried about, and that maybe haven't fully integrated. But the thing that the post-liberal gets that no branch of liberal tradition gets, this is the really serious problem, is that liberals have a really hard time taking religion seriously.
right,
They're really frightened by it for the most part. They have been from the beginning. Even Adam Smith supported establishment of religion to make the priests less fanatical and more men of learning. Um, that it's just like almost built into the tradition that organized religion it can be good, but gotta be
careful,
real careful, right? Um, to the point where there's some kinds of folks who are trying to transform Christianity. Benjamin Constant in France, this is right after the revolution or a few decades after the revolution. He's saying, look, we got to have a liberal Protestantism. Mill thinks we got to have a religion of humanity. He's not a very big fan of Christianity at all. There are late 19th century folks that are like very liberal Protestants. It's really not until the later, like particularly post-war liberalism, that you start to get people saying, okay, like I'm robustly Christian and classical
right,
liberal. But that's partly because of the efforts that the American conservatism or the American and British conservative movements made to integrate classical liberalism and religious conservatism. And that was an explicit created project of the kind of fusionist program that you see in people like Bill Buckley or Frank Meyer, or, I mean, in a certain kind of way, F.A. Hayek. And then, of course, in
Yeah.
Reagan and Thatcher. So, I mean, liberalism is a very adaptable set of views. And so the way I see post-liberalism is it's sort of reacting. The best post-liberalism is reacting in certain kinds of maladies in liberal order. But my line on all of this is that, look, we can actually address these problems from within a liberal democratic framework. And actually, people like Pabst or Milbank aren't going to totally disagree with that. And when it comes to like positive views, they get a little vague. Deneen's actually a very interesting case here because as you go through his career, he starts off and he's just like super decentralist, thinking that one problem is like the liberal central state and that you have to form, these kind of thick, what he calls lived Burkeanism, where you
Yep.
have your little platoons and stuff, very decentralized.
Hmm.
But in the new book, that's all gone. Regime change. I think it's partly his association with Viktor Orban in Hungary and with Vermeule's review of Deneen's book in 2018, Integration from Within. And Vermeule's clear, look, liberal state's too toxic for making any of this
Exactly.
decentralized stuff work. You
Right.
basically got to take the thing over, use it for promote substantive values. That is, after all, what the progressives are doing. And I think Deneen took that to heart. So, like, if you look at reviews of the book, he used to be a big person contributing this decentralist publication from Front Porch Magazine. They did not like the new book.
Well,
So
it's
he's gone from being centralist to where a lot of post-liberalism today is a lot more associated with using the central state, the administrative state, in order to sort of take it to the left and to not just treat them as adversaries with whom you trade power, but as enemies to be defeated for good. So that's a thing you see in post-liberalism today that even 5 years ago you wouldn't see all that much.
right, and it's hard not. I mean, I'm curious what you think again, but it's hard not to agree with Deneen that if you have your like Burkean like decentralized conclave like over in I don't know like northern Maine or something, that if you let like the modern sense of the liberal centralized state continue, like maybe you'll last longer than everything else, but eventually the acid will get you too. So I think there's something to the idea that yes, actually, you do have to get involved on the highest level, and stop the fountain of acid. But exactly what that looks like, I think, is the great concern. I guess.
They
How,
assume the state's the acid. I mean, I just don't. I mean, they think you can use also the state to create social change. It's positive, and I
mhm,
actually think there were like really good social scientific reasons. I think that's tremendously difficult. They don't spend any time with like what we know from like say development economics and stuff about how societies actually change and develop. So I just think it's too simple. It's like conservatives were like, oh, get politics, it'll change, or get culture, you'll change politics. That's 1980, right?
right.
2020, it's like you get politics, you'll change culture. And, I just think the truth has to be kind of nuanced and careful and contextual. I mean, think about it like
Well, it's certainly cyclical, of course. Like it's a little bit of
it
both.
is, but like think about it like this. The UN, through like really targeted interventions, has been trying to eliminate like basic poverty in Africa for
Mhm.
decades and decades and decades. And it's had some successes and a lot of failures. And like, if we can't even do things like stop like malaria, bed nets, we've made a lot of progress on that lately, thank God. Or man, and I'm sorry, folks in the audience, but like, we can't stop female genital cutting.
Mhm.
Like, we can't even wipe that out. So the idea that we're going to like take over the state and transform American society, it's just incredible hubris. What Hayek called the fatal conceit, even though he applied it to socialism. To me, radical post-liberalism is just the fatal conceit all over again.